Yo homes, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is another video on Stoicism, and in this one we'll discuss about the Stoic philosopher Cleanthes. So let's begin. Let us start with a brief introduction to who Cleanthes was, a short portion of its history. But before we proceed with that, in case you don't know what Stoicism is, there's a little video on that. I'll link it up in the description and somewhere around here. And moving on with Cleanthes. Cleanthes was from Assos, and he was a Greek philosopher, a Stoic philosopher. And he was the student of the founder of Stoicism, which is Zen. Now, quite funnily, he started his career as a boxer. He didn't begin with philosophy, but he was introduced to philosophy through the lectures of Cleanthes, the cynic, followed by Zeno, through which he slowly moved into Stoicism. Now, he was mostly involved in philosophy once he got introduced to it, and he used to support himself financially by carrying water. Carrying water was a job back in the days. We take it for granted now. So anyway, since he was mostly working at night and spent the entire day on working on philosophy, so there was no visible means of him supporting himself. As a result, he was called by the Greek judges kind of stuff at Areopagus, which is a visible rock-like or small hill-like rocky structure where important decisions were made. And there, being impressed with his work on philosophy, the judges voted to offer him 10 minae, which was a form of currency back then, which he didn't accept under the guidance of Zeno. But what he was mostly known for was his patient power of endurance. He was really hardworking, and that in fact earned him the nickname of the ass. But although it sounds funny, he was rather rejoiced with it, because it meant that his back was strong enough to endure anything Zeno put onto it. As I mentioned earlier, he succeeded Zeno as leader of the Stoic school in 262 BCE, and he continued to hold that position for the next 32 years until his death. Another impressive thing about him is, even after becoming the leader of the school, he still kept on sustaining himself by the work of his own labor. He accepted luxuries that comes with heading a school. Upon his notable achievements, he brought in various new ideas into Stoicism and developed it further, especially Stoic physics with his pantheism. And he wrote several doctrines on Stoicism. He in fact developed the doctrines of Zeno, who didn't write them himself. And the longest surviving literature from his is his compilation Hymn to his Youth. We'll discuss about that later on. Among his several pupils, Chrysippus, who went on to become one of the most recognized and well-known and important Stoic philosophers. Now that we have a brief history on him, let us move on with his philosophy, starting with an important declaration. Now let us discuss about Cleanthes' contributions and philosophies in terms of Stoic physics. Before we start with that, if you're liking what you're watching, there are more on the channel and more coming up, so please subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you get notified. Now, moving on with his contribution to Stoic physics, he was the one who primarily developed it after Zeno through his concept of tension, which is tonos in Greek, and incorporated it in parallel with the idea of atheism. Now he had two main philosophies or ideas in this term. One, he considered the sun to be divine because, as we know, the sun is pretty much what sustains all of life forms on earth. So he compared sun with a divine eternal flame or an ether of the universe. He even opposed the idea of giving more importance to earth as a center of the universe over sun. And moving on to his more important philosophy, he considered or rather declared the soul as materialistic as the physical body that the soul holds in. He argued that just like physical attributes and qualities, one inherit from our parents, we also inherit the mental capacity from our parents. Furthermore, just like when the body gets injured, like we had about cut or etc., the soul feels pain, and similarly vice versa, when the soul is torn by depression or anxiety, it is shown that the body also gets affected correspondingly. So as a combination of that, he came to the conclusion the soul must be as materialistic as the body. He did believe that the soul lives on even after death of the body, and that the intensity of the soul's existence after life depends on the strength or weakness of that particular soul. Hence, he believed one must live his life in a way in consistency with the natural reason that can strengthen the intensity of one's soul so that it can live on with more intensity after the person's death. Moving on, let us next discuss his philosophy on ethics, something that is given the most importance in terms of Stoicism's modern rendition. Now coming to Cleanthes' philosophy in terms of ethics and morality, something that's given a lot of importance in Stoicism. He is known to be pretty strict and straightforward in it. As I mentioned earlier, Cleanthes believed that the soul lives on after the death of the body, hence one must live a life that can contribute to strengthening one's soul, which can further increase the intensity of the existence of the soul after the body dies. And to him, in order to attain that, he had some rules, and he considered the three main passions, which is love, fear and grief, to be completely worthless as they contribute nothing to strengthening one's soul. He rather considers them to be not in tune with the natural order or the universal reason, something he gives a lot of importance to. As we know, he is teacher and the founder of Stoicism, Zeno, added the words to live consistently as part of a Stoic formula, which according to Zeno implies that to attain self-content, one must live a passionless life of reason. Now, Cleanthes added the words with nature to this, completing the famous Stoic formula as a goal to achieve happiness, which is to live consistently with nature. According to Zeno, this meant that one must live inconsistently with the universal order, and living in consistency with the universal order indirectly implies living a life of reason, because according to him the universe was governed by reason. And according to him, true freedom doesn't come by acting without motive or without purpose, but rather accepting the universal reason and what befalls oneself instead of fighting with fate. He believes one must accept his fate and make the best out of it. This view of his can be found in his famous prayer from the collection of his writing, which is Hymn to Zeus, where he says, "Lead me, Zeus, and you to destiny, to whatever your decrees have assigned." I follow readily, but if I choose not, wretched though I am, I must follow still. Fate guides the willing, but drags the unwilling.
Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Just like you taught me, Papa.
Well, Holmes, thanks a lot for watching and following the universal reason, the natural order. To give this video a like and share with your friends to introduce them with the beautiful concept of Stoicism, the philosophy of Cleanthes and of Stoics. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel for more coming and hit the bell notification to get notified. You can also follow me on other social media platforms, mainly Instagram. Links in the description below. You can use my stock elements like photos, clips and vectors from my 2020 and suggested accounts. Also links in the description below. And to work on yourself, be better than you were yesterday and stay above the crowd. Hope to see you again in the next video. Till then, matane.